My name is Alina. I'm 32 years old, and I never thought a simple dress could make an entire room turn against me. Last week, I attended a high-profile charity gala hosted by my cousin. I didn't wear anything expensive, just a simple dress I could afford. But when I walked in, I immediately felt the difference. People noticed, and not in a good way. First, it was just whispers. Then it turned into something else. Something louder. Something I wasn't expecting. I had barely taken 5 steps inside the ballroom when I heard someone behind me laugh quietly. Not the kind of laugh you ignore. The kind that makes you slow down without turning around. For a charity gala, a woman whispered, "You'd think people would dress appropriately." I kept walking. I didn't react. But I felt it. That shift in the air. That quiet judgment. And then something strange happened. Near the entrance table, one of the event coordinators looked at me twice. Not in a rude way. More like she was trying to figure something out. But before I could think about it, before I explain what happened next, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me where you're watching from. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. The gala was being held at one of the most expensive hotels in the city. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Soft music filled the room. Every table was decorated with white roses and gold accents. It looked like something out of a magazine. And everyone there looked like they belonged in that world. Designer gowns. Perfect makeup. Expensive jewelry that caught the light every time someone moved. And then there was me, standing near the entrance in a simple navy dress I had worn twice before. I wasn't embarrassed at first. Just aware. There's a difference. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was there because my cousin Serena had personally invited me. At least that's what I thought. Growing up, Serena and I were never close. She always lived a different kind of life. Private schools. Luxury vacations. Connections. Meanwhile, I worked my way through college, built my own career, and stayed far away from that world. We only spoke a few times a year. So when I received her invitation to this gala, I was surprised. But I went anyway. Maybe things had changed. Maybe she wanted to reconnect. I was wrong. About 15 minutes after I arrived, I spotted her across the room. Serena, wearing a bright red designer gown, surrounded by people, laughing. Of course, she hadn't seen me yet. Or maybe she had and chose not to. For a moment I considered just leaving. Quietly, without making a scene. But then she turned. Her eyes landed on me. And her smile changed. Just slightly. That was all it took. She walked toward me, her heels clicking against the marble floor. A few people followed behind her, watching, curious. "Alina," she said, her voice light but sharp underneath. "You actually came." "I was invited," I replied calmly. She looked me up and down, slowly, taking in every detail of my dress. And then she laughed, soft at first, then louder. "You wore that," she said. A few people behind her smiled. Someone even let out a quiet chuckle. I didn't respond. I just stood there. "I mean," she continued, turning slightly toward her group, "I didn't think you'd take the dress code this literally." More laughter. Not loud, but enough. Enough to make it clear. For a moment I thought that was it. Just another small humiliation. Something I'd forget by the next day. But then something unexpected happened. One of the men standing near the registration table suddenly stepped closer. He hadn't been paying attention before. But now he was. Really paying attention. He looked at me. Then at the list in his hand. Then back at me again. Like something wasn't adding up. Serena didn't notice. She was still talking. Still enjoying the attention. "This is my cousin," she said to the group. "She's more of a simple lifestyle kind of person." Polite laughter followed. But the man at the table didn't laugh. He frowned slightly, then flipped a page on his clipboard. For a moment, the noise of the room continued like nothing had changed. Glasses clinked. Music played. People talked. But something had shifted. I could feel it. The man stepped closer again. "Excuse me," he said politely. Serena turned slightly annoyed. "Yes." He hesitated for just a second, then looked directly at me. "Can I confirm your name?" he asked. That caught her attention. "Why?" Serena said quickly. "She's with me." But the man didn't look at her. Only at me. Alina, I said. He nodded slowly. Like that confirmed something. Or maybe everything. For a moment he didn't speak. And that silence felt louder than anything else in the room. Serena crossed her arms. What is this about? She asked, her tone sharper now. The man took a breath. Then said something that made the people around us go quiet. Your name, he said carefully, is listed under the primary guest registry. The words hung in the air. Unfinished. Heavy. And suddenly all the attention shifted. For a moment, no one spoke. Serena blinked. I'm sorry, what? She said, letting out a short laugh like it had to be a mistake. The man didn't smile. He looked back down at the list, then up at me again. Alina Rahman, he repeated. Primary guest. The group around us went quiet. Not completely silent, but enough that you could feel the shift. Serena's expression changed. Just slightly. That's not possible, she said quickly. There must be another. There isn't, the man replied calmly. He turned the clipboard slightly so she could see it. I didn't move. I didn't step closer. I just stood there watching. For a moment, Serena didn't say anything. Her eyes scanned the page, then scanned it again, as if the words might change. They must have mixed something up, she said, but this time her voice wasn't as confident. The people behind her weren't laughing anymore. They were watching, waiting. And that's when something else happened. From across the room, one of the event directors started walking toward us. You could tell by the way people moved aside for him, by the way staff straightened as he passed. He wasn't rushing, but he was coming directly toward us. Serena noticed. Of course she did. Her posture changed immediately. Her smile returned. Polished. Controlled. Perfect, she whispered under her breath. He'll clear this up. The director stopped beside the man with the clipboard. What's going on? He asked quietly. The man handed him the list. Just confirming a name, he said. The director glanced down. Then paused. For a moment his expression didn't change. But his eyes did. They moved from the paper to me. And stayed there. That was the second time that night someone looked at me like they were trying to remember something important. Serena stepped forward. There's been a misunderstanding, she said smoothly. She's my cousin. She's not. The director raised his hand slightly. Not aggressively. Just enough to stop her. I know who she is, he said. That's when things changed. The air around us felt different. He stepped closer to me. Not close enough to make it uncomfortable. Just enough to make it clear. His attention was no longer on Serena. Alina, he said, his tone shifting completely. Respectful. Familiar. You made it. I nodded slightly. I did. Serena looked between us. Confused. Wait, you know each other? She asked. The director didn't answer her immediately. Instead, he turned slightly toward the small group that had gathered, and spoke just loud enough for them to hear. Alina is the reason this gala exists. For a second no one reacted, because no one understood. Not yet. Serena frowned. What does that even mean? She said. The director looked back at me like he was giving me a chance to explain. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. So he continued. 3 years ago, he said calmly, this organization was on the verge of shutting down. A few guests nearby turned their heads. Listening now. Funding had collapsed. We were losing partners. We were weeks away from closing our doors. He paused. Let that sink in. And then, he continued, someone stepped in. He didn't rush it. Didn't dramatize it. Just told the truth. Anonymous donations. Strategic connections. Quiet support behind the scenes. Serena's smile had completely disappeared. The people around her weren't looking at her anymore. They were looking at me. And that someone, he said, glancing toward me again, was Alina. The silence this time was complete. I don't understand, Serena said softly. And for the first time that night, she sounded unsure. That's because she never wanted anyone to know, the director replied. He turned to me again. You asked us not to make it public, he said. You didn't want recognition. I gave a small nod. That was the agreement. He smiled slightly. Well, tonight was supposed to be different. Serena took a step back. Just one. But it was enough. You're saying, she started but couldn't finish. The director finished it for her. She's our main benefactor. The shift was immediate. You could feel it. The same people who had laughed earlier were now completely still. Someone near the back whispered something. Another person lowered their glass slowly. Serena didn't speak. She couldn't. Her eyes moved from me to my dress, then back to my face, like she was trying to reconcile the two. But, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, why would you wear that? It wasn't mocking this time. It was confusion. Real confusion. I looked at her. Calm. Steady. Because it was never about the dress, I said. No one laughed. No one spoke. The moment just settled over the room. The director stepped slightly to the side. Your table is ready, he said to me politely. Front section. Front section. The part of the room reserved for keynote guests. Serena closed her eyes for a second, like she needed a moment to process everything. When she opened them again, she didn't look at me the same way. The confidence was gone, replaced by something quieter, something uncertain. I didn't know, she said. I believed her. She didn't, because she never asked. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. I simply nodded and walked past her. Not quickly, not slowly, just calmly. People moved aside without being asked. Some nodded respectfully. Others avoided eye contact completely. But no one laughed. Not anymore. Later that night, as the music played and conversations picked up again, everything looked normal on the surface. But it wasn't. Something had changed. Not just for them, but for me too. Because sometimes, the loudest kind of respect doesn't come from what people say. Comes from what they stop saying. And that night, an entire room learned something without being told. Because sometimes the people you look down on are the ones holding everything together.